Hey girl, welcome. Welcome. I don't want to call it the table because I know Jada got her show.
Okay. The green table, the planted table,
Right.
the wooded tables.
Right. Welcome to the seats, the chairs. I'm glad you are here, and I'm glad you came from LA. Came far.
Not really. I like the drive.
You like the drive?
I really do.
Okay, I'm glad you have that sentiment because so many people complain. I had to drive all the way from LA. I'm like, it's really
It's
not that
just
bad.
an hour and a half, and it's really nice drive. Honestly, I needed an excuse to get out of the city, so it's fine. Thanks for having me.
Of course, it's always a pleasure to have you. So let's get into your introduction. Tell the audience who you are, what you do, what you're about.
I'm Chelsea VonChaz. I'm a menstrual equity worker. I'm a womb warrior. I am a founder of a charity, also board members of a couple other charities that are within the women's reproductive space. My charity is Happy Period, which is a educational wellness brand that's centered on menstrual health and giving people access to safe period products. We serve folks who identify as women, girls, femme, gender expansive humans, anyone that has a period, that's who we serve essentially. I also work for, I'm a board member of Period Equity, which is another nonprofit organization that's centered on removing the tampon tax here in the US. And my work there is also centered on educating folks about the tampon tax, making sure people are aware that, it's something that does discriminate against you if you have a period, if you're in a state that essentially has a tax on the sale of your period products. It's unfair, it's unethical, especially when there's public spaces that essentially give you free products to help with your hygiene. Like we go in the restroom, there's toilet paper, there's soap, and there's water. We even have restrooms that are family friendly,
Right.
But we still don't have access to, to period products, especially if you have a period. So that's the work that I do there.
And that's a lot of work.
It is.
Are you proud of yourself? I'm always proud of you. Just
Thank
watching
you.
you grow since I met you and all your endeavors. You said you started a charitable organization called We Are Happy Period?
Yes. Happy Period. Mm-hmm.
We Are Happy Period, and y'all can find We Are Happy Period on Instagram.
Yes.
But you told me a little bit about how you started it, but why don't you go ahead and tell the audience, because I think it's amazing.
So I mean, because Happy Period's about to be 7 years old in February. So before I even got the idea to start a charity, I was in wardrobe, so I was still doing styling gigs. My last gig at the time, I was kind of in between like freelancing and then figuring out if I wanted to do, more so if I wanted to join the costume guild. So that's when I signed on to do Insecure. So in between doing Insecure, I still hated my job. I still hated it. No, seriously, I didn't like it. I was like, I need to do something else. Like, it's not really serving me. There's perks to styling. It's fun. You can be creative to a degree. You meet people. But I just really wasn't into like the superficial thing. And then also, you still get boxed in a way, especially when you're moving up into trying to get credits to join Costumers Guild, jumping from different departments or doing freelancing, but I had enough. But in that process of just trying to figure out what I was doing, just in between serving or more so assisting other assistants that were at a higher level than me in their careers, I was leaving one job and going to another one, and I was driving in LA and I saw this black girl cross the street, and she had a period stain on her butt, and I can tell that she was experiencing homelessness. Like, she really didn't have any clothes on. She was all like dirty and kind of like ripped up in rags, but she just crossed the street, and I saw a period stain on her butt, and I was just like, And I'm in my car, like driving, and I'm at a red light. So that's how I just had a moment where I could see her. And I'm like, does anybody else see this shit? Anybody else looking? And mind you, I'm in LA. I was at La Brea and 3rd. I remember exact address. La Brea and 3rd, not too far from the Grove, pretty much like in between Hollywood and almost like West Hollywood. So ritzy poo area, but mad folks who are, you know, essentially houseless. I don't like to say the word homeless because it you know, assumes that you don't have a home or there's no placement for you. But it's like, no, the experience is you are houseless, you know, or apartmentless, you know, and that's for a lot of people because a lot of people actually couch surf and still have a home, you know, like that's just what it is. It's reality for today. So yeah, it's a lot that we witness in that area. I mean, everywhere here in the U.S. and even from a global perspective, like poverty is real, right? But yeah, I just had a moment because so many thoughts went in my mind, like, damn, if you are on the streets and you get your period, like, what do you do and where do you go? What resources do you have? And yeah, then I was on my period that day and I was like, damn, but what if you're cramping? What if you're constipated? What if you have diarrhea? What if you're bloated and you're nauseous? Like all these things that we actually go through, we're on our periods and then you don't have your Motrin or whatever, you know, you don't have herbs to take care of you. You don't have water. It was just literally a panic attack at the red light in my mind. So I didn't approach her. She was not in the position to be approached. Because people ask me that all the time, like, why didn't you just approach her? And it's like, no, she was not in a position to be approached. And I always educate people on, you don't have to always approach people. But I did reach out to some shelters to get answers about, you know, what kind of resources are there for folks. I think I called or emailed like, I don't know, like 7 or 8 shelters within LA County. And then one did email me back with some type of response. But I did get someone on the phone who, you know, I could tell was kind of like over their job and rightfully so. I mean, you know, that's a tough job to have, whether you're in administration for a shelter or transition home or whether you actually work, you know, hands-on with the people. But anywho, I mean, the main thing that they told me was that legally they are not obligated as a shelter to allocate any part of their budget for menstrual products. So even if they serve folks who identify as women, folks who have periods, they don't have to allocate their budget to actually like go out and purchase period products or even have a set amount for, you know, to allocate that expense, just like they have to do for water, food, maintenance, operations, cleaning, and things like that. So they do rely on folks to just donate these things. And then the second part of that, people don't donate period products. Why? Because we don't talk about periods. We don't encourage people to talk about periods. We don't encourage people to donate period products. Like, you know, the number one item that people donate to homeless shelters is like canned goods as far as like an item. And then maybe number 2 would be socks, blankets, depending on the location. But when I asked her about what product do they, you know, as far as a hygiene product, what do they get on a regular basis? And she legit said razor blades and shaving cream for the men.
That's it.
Yeah, I was like, oh, wow. She was like, yeah, and then of course, you know, soap, toothpaste. I was like, no period products. And she said, no. And I was like, well, what if, you know, somebody comes in your office and they literally, you could tell they're on their period, they need something. And she was like, honestly, like on a regular, we tend to just go in our own purses and just give it to them because we don't have anything in our pantry. Nobody's donating. So yeah, that was enough for me to hear, you know. So I just, in my mind, I was like, well, if I don't do this, then it's going to be too many women walking around here needing period products and no one's there to help them. So.
Right. And you just called me out because as you were talking, I was like, damn, I've never donated period products.
Oh, really?
And I donate stuff all the time.
All the time, yes.
And that's real. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I have never done that.
Yeah, because it's also weird, too, to think about it, like the psychology of it, because when we think of someone who is experiencing homelessness, we tend to put the two genders or all genders all in one box. So we don't look at the female or someone who may have a periods experience differently than a man's experience, or someone who does not have a period if they're homeless or if they're experiencing homelessness. So nobody's really thinking, oh, just because this person is houseless, that doesn't mean that their period is going to stop. Or just because, there's a natural disaster, that doesn't mean like periods are just going to stop. Or, so again, this kind of falls back into the whole stigma and taboo surrounding like, okay, we're not even talking about periods, nobody's thinking about them, so why would people care about them either?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I remember the first time I had even heard the term period poverty was basically when I met you and I learned more about your work. So can you define what that is for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, I used another term too, which is menstrual equity. So menstrual equity is the education, affordability, and access to be able to manage your menstrual cycle. Someone that falls into period poverty may not have any of those, like they don't have the access, they cannot afford period products, and then they also don't know how to manage their own period because there's a lack of education there. And so when we're thinking about like the poverty cycle, especially for folks who identify as women or girls, there's this extra expense that we have over something that we actually have no control over. So if a woman or a girl or anyone gender expansive does not have the money to afford period products, there's like so many ways in how they can get caught up in poverty or in the system. I can use the example of someone who, well, a very common example actually, someone who is out living on the street and they go steal period products and then they get caught and they get locked up. Now they're in that cycle just from their period that they really have no control over. Someone who misses out on school because their parents or they don't have access to period products and they choose not to go to school because they don't want to be embarrassed by just flowing at school, and two, simply because they just don't even have it at home. They're not going to leave their home to go out and potentially be exposed at school. So that's like two main examples of how like that person is kind of hindered because they don't have access to something that they can't control, especially something as simple or something as natural as, a period. And then, the poverty itself is just already something that's crazy that it exists, and there's so many avenues and how people can fall into it. But something as, again, normal and natural as periods, to me, is just, it's crazy how that's another factor of how folks with periods can just kind of fall into, a cycle without even, knowing, with no assistance either.
Okay, so now we understand period poverty, right? We understand menstrual equity, as you said. Now, how does an everyday person go into their local communities and advocate for this issue?
I mean, everybody's different, so of course it's going to be based on folks' comfortability, right? I think the first thing is that we really have to get comfortable with periods. Like we just have to get comfortable with menstruation. Like it perpetuates humanity. Like we have to have periods. We have to have an entire menstrual cycle, which is more than just the menstruation part. There's other parts of the entire cycle. There's 4 stages of the cycle. So it's like we have to have this to happen in order for us to create more humans, right? So we have to, one, start talking about periods. We have to start educating people about periods. So anyone that wants to be involved, especially if they're a teacher, administrator, school principal, we need some type of challenge with institutions so that way they understand why periods are so important. I mean, it's just, to me, that's like the number one thing, you know what I mean? Just making sure that students, all students, not just girls or students identify as girls, make sure all students, all kids know what a period is and why it's super important. As far as, other options, donating to charities, being there for other people who have periods, and even if you don't. I mean, because there is like a code that we have, having a period, to look out for each other. But I think the rest of the world just needs to kind of get on board with that, because for some, unfortunately, because they're not on board, they're making it harder for us to have this, experience and be able to manage it. One, why there's a tax on tampons. Two, why there's no public access to products. And then three, why there's no education about your periods, even if you are, whether in middle school, high school, or elementary school. So yeah, it's really gonna take folks to just get comfortable with periods and just make like a personal initiative to change it.
And you do some of that education. So I
Yeah.
want you to plug yourself because educators can hire you. I know we've been talking about you wanting to get into the schools for a while.
Right,
now.
right. Oh, for sure, because it's a challenge. I roll my eyes every time I think about it because it's such a challenge, because I'm always encouraging them to include the boys. I'm always encouraging them to go as young as 8, 9 years old because you can be that young and get your period. I'm always encouraging them to don't just have the period products at the nurse's station. Put them in the restrooms. The students have to go to the restrooms on a regular basis anyway. Stop, enforcing these, kind of just unnecessary uniform policies that really don't, uphold the students in a positive way, and same thing with bathroom policies too. I think it's almost, it may be controversial to say, but it's almost like prison. It's like lining them up for prison low key, with all the rules and regulations and just such a restriction on the person's body or the kid or student's body. So yeah, it's been a long time coming. The main thing right now is the vending machine. So we have the PPE machine, which stands for Period Protection Essentials. So that's a machine that I created over after COVID, or not even after, child. We still in COVID. Not even funny, but it's still present, So I should say more so during quarantine, came up with the idea to create a vending machine. And so with that, I put that in a, more so in like a women's center at first, but we do plan on replicating that so that way schools actually have some type of dispenser or a little kiosk that can go in their restrooms for the students. So it's not just them going to the nurse's station when they have, a oops or, a mess up their clothes because they get their period at school. But yeah, it's like our own way of challenging the institutions, like I said, but also making sure the students have the essentials that they need without having to worry about how I'm going to pay for this. What if my mother doesn't have this? We don't know. I think a lot of us, especially teachers, sometimes can assume that their students are not poor or that their students are not living in poverty, or that, they just know what their period is or they know what to do. It's like we can't be assuming this anymore.
That's so true. And y'all gotta follow her at We Are Happy Period, because those period vending machines, that whole concept is so cool. And you designed it like, it's just like how you dress. Like you just do things cool and hip. And isn't it like touch screen too?
Yes, it does have like a touch screen, little screen on it that kind of explains what it is. So it is educational. It is something that promotes the organization, but it more so just lets you know like, hey, this is absolutely free. But you just click on it and it'll dispense out a little package, which, is kind of like a pack, because we don't really, I'm also not about telling people what products to use, because I think it's just more so about making sure this is arranged, here for you, so you know the difference between reusable versus disposable. So the pack that the machine has actually has pads, tampons, and liners in it. But for Happy Period as a whole, we also do, promote folks learning about non-conventional products like period panties, menstrual cups, menstrual discs. So yeah, it's a little step into the future, but.
And you do it so well. I'm tell you right now, like after just us being friends first, and then learning more just about period poverty, about menstrual equity. I don't even wear tampons anymore after meeting you.
You're not the only one. Everybody's like, yo, I appreciate you, because this is what I do. And I don't think I did this to you though, but usually what I do is I go in all my girlfriends' bathrooms, and I just throw all y'all shit away. Like whatever is under the sink that I don't approve of, it's like, nope, I throw it away. But I replace it. And so maybe with you, I just gifted you a cup or underwear or something.
No,
I don't know.
what changed my life, like I always knew what you did, but you came out here for the film festival.
Yes.
And we went and saw that film.
Okay.
And then just the discussions we were having after, I learned about what's it called, Diva Cup? It's Diva Cup. And then we started talking about like, what's the Honey Co?
Honey Pot. The Honey Pot Company, yes.
I only buy her stuff now.
See?
That, what's it called? It's not I don't want to call it a diffuser, but it's basically something that pH balance.
Yes, for the pH balance.
I use that all the time after I finish my cycle. Amazing, the cleansing
nice cleanse, yeah.
And I use her tampons are amazing. They like heat up your vagina or something. I don't know. It's like mint infused. I don't know what it is, but like it takes that whole smell of blood away. I'm like, sis, you are from the heavens above.
I love it. I love it. I love it. No, I love Beatrice. She's amazing. I love that there's so many women in this space of period products. Like it's not just Kotex, Tampax, which are majority run by men and founded by men.
Really?
But now there's, even the tampon was invented by a man. Crazy. But a black woman created the pads with wings though, with the belt.
Oh,
on
I
it,
do remember you sharing that, learning that.
For sure. So I'm happy now that we're spreading the word again, just about different products, and now people can make better choices for themselves. You know, if it's if it has something to do with their wallet, the environment, like if they're conscious about sustainability, whatever it is, like, yeah, I'm happy.
Wow,
all my girlfriends like, yo, you switch me up, sis. I can't go back. And it's like, why would you?
You did, and now every time I meet someone else or I'm dealing with my sisters now, I'm always like educating you. I'm like, you gotta go follow my friend. Happy period, Chelsea VonChaz.
I love it. I don't mind being called the period person or the period girl or the period girl. I don't mind. I have a homegirl, Dr. Sharis Chambers, she's the period doctor on Instagram. And I feel that way about her because she educates me so much, like on another level, on a medical level, because there is, I didn't go to medical school, but there's so much that we can learn, and like what she does, teaching women about all these different disorders, just the options that we have when it comes to like healthcare choices and advocating for your body, which I'm hugely about, because a lot of us with periods, like, our first encounter with doctors, OBGYN, is dealing with our vaginas. And it's like automatically uncomfortable because we're talking to somebody that we don't know who does not look like us about our vaginas. And it's like, I'm supposed to trust you, and I'm supposed to open my legs and let you look at me? Really? Really? No, yeah, it's a lot. It's just, it's super uncomfortable as it is. So the work that we're doing is to really try to undo that, or to just make it better, so that way folks are more encouraged and feel a lot more positive about going to a doctor,
Yeah. Well, I know we could talk about this for hours.
Yes,
but
we can.
We don't have hours. So what are ways that people can continue to support your work? Like, first, let's just say it, financially.
Yeah, I mean, we're a charity, so that is the first challenge, like just donating, grants, fundraising, working with VCs, working with other social enterprises, working with other organizations. Like I'm open to it. I'm more about collaboration over the whole competition thing. I think if I choose to have some type of competition thing with another organization, it should be based on like, okay, well, how many folks can we get off the street, or how many folks can we actually secure jobs for? So anybody that contacts me, just know I don't work for free. That's slavery. I have to honor my ancestors by not working for free. I don't talk on the phone, consult for free, giving out advice, even though I do see a lot of what's going on in this industry, of what's not happening or the voids that are not being filled. But in order for me to give that, it's like, you have to make a donation. You have to, book me. And that's the best way, honestly, to support me and the organization, by just coming correct and being ready to work.
So that's through We Are Happy Period, at We Are Happy Period on Instagram.
On Instagram, yes.
Website is
#happyperiod.org.
#happyperiod.org, and that's what it is. Well, thank you for joining me in our seats. That's what we're
Okay.
And the seats, I don't know. I'm gonna come up with something because this is a little cute setup we got here.
It is. I dig it.
Yeah, I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And thank you all for tuning in to Voices of Liberation.